All right, so the external environment of business is fastly changing, it's dynamic. There's so many things to think about all of the time, whether it be political issues, legal issues, and societal issues. And so the focus of this video is thinking about those external components. What do we need to consider within our environment to make sure that we're making better decisions related to our workforce planning and recruitment and selection? I use an actual case of Delta Airlines, which I hope you enjoy, and I think it takes it more from an abstract level to something a little bit more concrete. And as we move through these slides, hopefully you can think about each one of these considerations for your own organization.
All right, we're back to our systems theory and thinking again about listening to our environment, external and internal environments, to make sure that we are making good decisions in our workforce planning. In this video, we'll be looking at the external environment. Okay, so here we actually have a picture of Minneapolis, and University of Minnesota would be over here. I work on the West Bank, so my office is over there. All right, so let's take a look at this slide, though. We have all of these external considerations, and it seems like quite the list here. It's really not the goal for you to memorize them. It's for you to think about your own organization, perhaps as we move through the slides. And the next time you do workforce planning, pull out this list and make sure that you have considered all of these. I think it's easier for us to use a real-life example rather than discussing all of those external considerations in abstract terms. And so to explore how the external environment affects recruitment and selection, let's use Delta Airlines as a case study. If you're not familiar with Delta, it's a major American airline headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. They operate over 5,400 flights daily, and they have both domestic and international flights. 334 destinations, 64 countries. Let's take a look at these external factors and how they affect Delta Airlines workforce planning. We'll start with the economy. The economy affects whether or not Delta needs to hire more employees. Given the most recent economic downturn, let's take a look at that. Companies make less in profits generally. Several things happen then to employees and organizations. They may get downsized, meaning they lose their job, and unemployment goes up. There's also typically no wage increases during that period of time or even a decrease in wages. But unfortunately, inflation in the economy still rises, so the average worker makes less money or, again, as I said before, is unemployed. Because of this, people have less disposable income and they don't travel as much. Businesses also watch their expenses and send fewer business travelers around the globe. This means a decrease in sales for Delta, and then they may need to lay off workers. The converse, although, is true, and when the economy is doing well and people are traveling more, Delta has to hire more employees to staff all of their operations. Delta is just one of many airlines that prospective workers may want to work for. The pool of talent for flight attendants and other employees within the flight industry can be competitive. People want to go to the company that's most attractive, pays better wages, all these different things. Delta has to determine how will we position ourselves as what we may say an employer of choice, one that people want to work for. The airline industry has become increasingly competitive in the past few decades. Airline carriers around the world have worked to cut costs to lower prices as a way to compete for customers. Now, there may even be a substitution for flights. And people are able to now meet virtually instead of actually face-to-face, and that affects sales. So the fact that we can Skype, Google Hangout, have a WebEx, whatever it is, we have the ability to do that instead of meeting in person. And that's a substitute of flying. One example of legislation would be the fact that workers have the right under law to legally unionize. The legislation is the National Labor Relations Act. And under that act, their employees, the unionized employees, have the right to strike if they do not feel that the company is meeting their demands for whatever they're collectively bargaining, wages, working conditions, safety, things like that. Where are we finding workers? Do they have the education we need, and are they available? Is there high unemployment so it's hard to find people? Low unemployment that makes it difficult to find who we need? What are the demographics of the labor market? All of these things Delta needs to be responsive to and prepared for. On a recent flight to France, the flight attendant spoke both English and French. Delta needs workers in certain situations who speak multiple languages. Beyond that, with globalization, Delta can also hire call center agents around the world. Many times these centers, whether it be Delta or another organization, are located where it makes economical sense, where we can find good labor for less money. An example of advanced technology affecting Delta's hiring process is the ability now for self-service. As a business traveler, you can use, for instance, even your Apple Watch to scan in. This means Delta has to hire fewer ticketing agents as some of these things are self-serve. In the airline industry, a major expense is fuel. So Delta invested into their own refinery to better control costs. Well, their core business wasn't refinery, and so that means that they need employees with new competencies, those with knowledge of fuel production, outside of the world of the airline industry. Today it seems everything is mobile. Customers want to be able to do their bookings, to book their flights on their phones. And that means that we need people who can create mobile technology for customers. Where is your business located? The main hub for Delta is in Atlanta. So does Atlanta provide enough people with the capabilities that Delta needs at their corporate location, or do they need to look elsewhere to staff those functions? And like most other organizations, Delta is facing changes in society, like an aging workforce and more diversity and those kinds of things that affect their workforce plan. So we looked at just one industry, the airline industry, but all organizations must be responsive and pay attention to the external considerations to understand how they will affect the recruitment and selection process.